What's going on YouTube? Kamikazevondoom here with another Division 2 video, and today's Division 2 video is going to be your complete guide and walkthrough on how to farm Floor 100 Summit on Legendary with 8 directives. I'm going to go through each of the builds, the mechanics, and I will show you the gameplay for each position and their different points of view. So let's go ahead and get started because this is going to be kind of a lengthy video, but don't forget to hit that thumbs up, support the channel. We just hit 30,000 subscribers, so thank you so much for your support. Now this has been a highly recommended video because a lot of you saw my Oxidizer and Oxidizer 2.0 builds, and you also saw me farming the Summit on a few past streams. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fully explain every part to this farm. That way you can do it yourself with your buddies and get not only a lot of XP, but a crap ton of drops. So let's get started. Now there are only 3 different builds you need for this entire farm, and the first of which is the Oxidizer build. Now for the Oxidizer build for Floor 100, you have 2 different stages. The first stage is just an open room where you have to kill a few waves of enemies. However, the second stage is where you go against the hunters themselves. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the Oxidizer build you need to run for that first part, and then I'm going to show you the Oxidizer build you need for the hunters. Now, in a 4-man group, you would have 2 people running this build for the first part of Floor 100. However, for the hunters, you will need 3 people running this build. The only difference is they're going to change the backpack and they're going to change what skill they're using with the Oxidizer. Alright, so for this one, I'm going to do the full build breakdown, and then I'm going to show you gameplay of that first area of Floor 100. Then I'm going to explain how to make the changes for the hunters. I'm going to explain how you use it for the hunters, and then show the gameplay for that as well. Now, besides the Oxidizer build, you need a healer riot foam build, and you also need an explosive damage mortar build. So starting off with this Oxidizer, you want 2 people running this the exact same way. So let's start off at the top. Technician specialization. Now the technician specialization gives you 1+ skill tier, and it also gives you 10% skill damage. Now the reason I am using technician mainly is because I have the sacrifice chest piece. Now this gives me that perfect glass cannon amplified damage. However, it does come with a red core attribute. So running the technician specialization gives me that tier 6 skills, and I can also use a red core attribute for weapon damage. Now that's why I'm using the technician. As far as the weapons, you only need to have the primary weapon and the sidearm. You need to have a pistol with in sync. Reason being is you can shoot a pistol fairly quick and proc that in sync instantly. Now we are running legendary with 8 directives, so you have to have a pistol within sync, because when you start Floor 100 you are not going to have any ammo for your primary or secondary weapon. So having that pistol with in sync really does help you out. Now after you kill a few NPCs, you will get ammo for your primary and secondary weapons, and then I highly recommend you use the test subject. Reason being is you can get it with damage to targets out of cover, and obviously it comes with perfectly in sync. Now the reason you want damage to targets out of cover opposed to damage to armor, because if you look at them right here, damage to armor only gives you 6%, as damage to targets out of cover gives you 10%. So you're getting more multiplicative damage on your build. Now, remember that All of these multiplicative damage buffs help out your Oxidizer. A lot of skills are not affected by damage to armor or damage to targets out of cover. However, the Oxidizer is, and that's why we are using it this way. So, recap, you want the Technician for the 6 skill tiers while running 1 red core attribute. And then you want the Perfectly in Sync for your primary, and then Normal in Sync for your sidearm. Your secondary weapon doesn't really matter because you're not really using your weapons at all during this entire thing. And if you are, you're going to either use your primary or your sidearm. Okay, now let's talk about the build, because this build is a little different from the other Oxidizer builds that you've seen me use. Alright, so doing a deep dive, starting off with the mask. I am using 2 Walker Harris & Co. Reason being is I want the damage to armor brand set bonus, and you get that from running 2 Walker Harris & Co. Now this one has skill damage and status effects. For everything on the build, I want skill damage and skill haste, but it is really hard to find these Walker Harris with double yellows, so I'm sticking with the status effects for right now. Now you want the double yellows, that way you can re-roll the core attribute to a skill tier. Reason being is you have to have tier 6 skills in order to get all the enemies and the hunters down fast enough, because if you don't, you and your team are going to end up dying. Now for the mod, I am using skill haste. Going to the backpack. Now between the first part of floor 100 and the hunters, the only thing you're going to change on your Oxidizer build is the backpack. Reason being is for the first part of floor 100, you want tech support. Reason being is you're not going to have a lot of ammo, and when you do, it's only going to be pistol ammo, so proccing the combined arms is not really in your wheelhouse too much. Now for the hunters, you're already going to have ammo, and having the combined arms will give you more damage overall just by shooting one of the hunters with 1 bullet. However, for the first part of floor 100, you're going to have tech support. That way, every time you get a skill kill, you're going to get more skill damage, and it's going to last for a while. Every time you get a skill kill, you are able to re-proc the tech support over and over and over. So that's why you want that for the first area where you have all those enemies. Now for the hunters, you want the combined arms because you are going to be proccing your Perfectly in Sync, and the best thing to do while you're doing that is to proc combined arms because it gives you the same amount of damage, but you're adding it with the Perfectly in Sync and then the multiplicatives and then the glass cannon, and you're just getting a crap ton of damage. So back to what we have for the first part of floor 100, Wyvernware backpack with tech support. Now this one came with repair skills. I can't be picky because RNG gave it to me that way, but what you want is skill damage and skill haste. Now for the mod, I do have another skill haste mod. Now these next 3 items are pretty hard to come by. First one, the sacrifice. The sacrifice is hard to come by just by itself, but to have it come with 2 yellows is even harder. So for this one, I kept the weapon damage on the core attribute because I can do that with the technician specialization. Now as far as the attributes, I have skill damage and skill haste. Those are the 2 that you want for these Oxidizer builds. And then for the mod, another skill haste mod. Now why would you run the sacrifice? Because the damage you deal, all damage, is amplified by 30%. So you have to put into account all the additive buffs, whether it be tech support, combined arms, in sync, perfectly in sync, whatever. And then you have to multiply in the damage to armor, damage to targets out of cover, and then you have to amplify that with the glass cannon. So you're doing a lot of buffs and damages at once to get through this content with ease. This is how you can get through the legendaries with 8 directives so easy. Now the next one that's hard to come by, the contractor's gloves. This one you have to get to roll with skill damage. That way you can re-roll that core attribute off for a skill tier. That is vital. Now you want the contractor's gloves because that damage to armor, that multiplicative buff does help out your Oxidizer. Next up, Fox's Prayer knee pads. These are hard to come by as well. So you have to have them roll with skill damage. That way you can re-roll that core attribute off for a skill tier. And then remember, the damage to targets at a cover, that multiplicative buff does help out your Oxidizer. And then the last part of this build, another Walker Harris piece. So the 2 pieces you have to have for Walker Harris are usually the chest or the mask and the holster. Now if you can find a Walker Harris with double yellows and tech support, by all means you could use that for the backpack, but it is way easier to grind out the mask and the holster. That way you can just get a Wyvernware backpack, which are very common, and just put tech support on that. Now as far as this holster, this one came with skill damage and skill haste. That way I could re-roll that core attribute off for skill tier, because you need to have that tier 6. That way you can get through this content. Now, for the first part of floor 100, you are going to have 2 people run this build this exact way. You're going to have both of them with a jammer pulse and an Oxidizer. Now the reason for the jammer pulse, this is vital. The jammer pulse will knock out the Chunga's backpack, which on legendary, the Chunga's backpack has a stinger hive that does a crap ton of damage. So what you want to do is use this jammer. It will knock out the Chunga's backpack. Not only that, but you get DARPA dogs that will spawn in, and also those mini tanks with those controllers. Now the jammer pulse will do damage to both the mini tanks and the dogs. So if you have 2 people running this at the same time, you can alternate jammer pulses and you can destroy the dogs and the mini tanks without even firing a bullet. Not only that, but if you alternate it just right, you will be able to disable that Chunga's backpack for the entire duration. That way you can just work on getting that Chunga down. So this is the build you want to use for the first part of floor 100. Remember, in a 4-man team, you want 2 people running this exact same build. So what I'm going to show you now is I'm going to show you some gameplay footage of me using this exact same build for that first part of floor 100. That way you can see exactly how I use it and where I usually position myself on that part of floor 100. Now just remember, when those doors open, the Riot Foam healer is going to proc an overcharge. That way he can get that Riot Foam to stick to all the enemies. What you are doing as the Oxidizer is you are calling out where those enemies are. So, you know, they're far left, they're back right, they're center left, center right, or all center. You call out where those enemies are. That way the Riot Foam guy can get close enough, foam all of them. Both of the Oxidizer builds can do damage to those foamed enemies, and then all 4 of you can go get packed into that little cubicle area where all the enemies will spawn out of those double doors. So I'm going to show you gameplay now of how to use this Oxidizer in the first part of floor 100, and then we're going to come back and talk about the Oxidizer build for the hunters after I talk about the other 2 builds. But alright, so first part of floor 100, this is the Oxidizer build you want to use. If you are in a 4-man group, you want 2 people to run this exact same build. So we are going to roll the gameplay, and I will be right back. So enjoy it, please don't forget to hit that like, subscribe if you're new, and let me know what you think in the comment section below. But alright, roll that footage. Never changes. It's so reliable. Alright, we have left. Every time. Oh no. Oh man. I feel bad when I meet people like that, man. I had to make a video last week on oh, screw that, man. I usually walk them through it because right before Division 2 came out, like no lie, I was just bored playing Underground in Div 1. And this old guy I'm playing the game with, he starts talking about how he has 4 characters and he's been grinding and this and that. And I was like, yeah, man, me too. I love having 4 characters because I can, you know, switch gear over, I can farm for this, sometimes my RNG is good for this and not for that. And he starts like talking to me in a very confusing tone. And he's like, what do you mean share gear? He didn't know the stash was a thing. So he farmed 4 characters separately the whole game. And alright, now welcome back. So I just showed you me using the Oxidizer for that first part of floor 100. I went ahead and showed you a few different runs, that way you could see that the movement and the mechanics are pretty much the same. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the second build that you need for that first part of floor 100. And that is, let me get to a good area, boop-a-doo. That is your explosive damage mortar build. So like you saw in that gameplay footage and you've seen every time I farm floor 100, we usually have a mortar guy that sits behind the desk in those cubicles, and he just mortars that spawn point, those double doors where the enemies come out. He's just constantly mortaring them, and this is the build you want to use. So for the skills overall, what you want is you want the mortar turret to sit between those 2 pylons, and I'll show you in the gameplay after this. And then you also want to throw your shrapnel trap right there in front of the double doors. That way when the enemies spawn out, not only are you hitting them with mortars, but if they get past the mortars, they will hit your shrapnel traps and blow up. This build is vital for keeping those enemies at bay and basically knocking out all those additional waves. That way you can get to the hunters as fast as possible. So let's talk about it. So this is going to be your mortar build for that first part of floor 100. Starting with the specialization, you want the demolitionist specialization. Reason being is it gives you explosive damage when you have it equipped, and that's what you want. Now I'm going to skip to the stats here just to show you. There we go. So you want 40% explosive damage. The only way to get that is to run the demolitionist with the Grupo Sombra and the China Light Industries. So remember that, 40% explosive damage. Now for this build, again, for the weapons, you only care about the primary and the sidearm. Make sure you have a pistol within sync, and then you are running the test subject with perfectly in sync. Now for the build, this is pretty much a classic mortar build, but there's a little twist on it. So let's just talk about it. Starting off with the mask. Grupo Sombra mask. Now for the Grupo Sombra, you need the skill damage and the status effects for the attributes. The status effects are mainly for the bleed that happens after the explosions go off. So if you want skill haste instead of status effects, by all means, you can do that. But at least have the 2 yellows for the attributes. That way you can re-roll that core attribute off for a skill tier. Now for the mod, I am using skill haste. Now the part that's different from a lot of people is I am running the tech support for the backpack. Now a lot of people would prefer the perfect shock and awe, which is a great talent to use. However, it is way easier to have the tech support active, and the tech support gives you more damage overall. So tech support on the China Light Industries backpack, and you want the double yellows. Either skill damage, skill haste, or right here, I have skill damage status effects. Now the reason you're using the China Light Industries is because by running one piece of China Light, you get 15% explosive damage, and that's what you need. Now for the mod, another skill haste mod. Going down to the chest piece, the same sacrifice chest piece. Well, no, actually this one's different. So the reason why this one is different is because I am running the demolitionist specialization. So I do not get the +1 skill tier from using the technician. So for this build, I have to have a sacrifice chest piece with skill tier as the core attribute. So for this chest piece, the best way to farm it is just to find one with skill damage. The other attribute doesn't really matter, and then just re-roll that core attribute off for a skill tier. That way you can still have the 6 skill tiers with the perfect glass cannon. Now for the attribute, or for the mod I should say, another skill haste mod. Now for the gloves, Contractor's gloves and Fox's prayers do not work with the mortar turret. So because of that, I'm using Hanayu. Now the Hanayu gives me skill haste from the brand set bonus, and then you want it to come with skill damage and skill haste as well with that skill tier. Now going to the knee pads, I have Grupo Sombra knee pads. These ones came with skill damage and skill haste, and then again you need to re-roll that core attribute off for a skill tier. And then finally, last but not least, a Wyvern Wear holster. That way you get the skill damage from the brand set bonus. Now as far as the attributes, again, skill damage and skill haste, and then obviously it comes with that 1 skill tier. And this is the mortar explosive damage build. Now for the skills, like I said, and I'll show you in the gameplay here in a second, you want to use the artillery turret. This is the mortar turret. Now this one's going to be tier 6, and it's going to do a buttload of damage. Now, like I said, you're going to be sitting behind the desk, and you are going to throw your mortar turret between the 2 columns. The 2 columns are parallel with the double doors. That way, every time the enemies come out of those double doors, you have a perfect arc to shoot your mortar. Just watch the gameplay footage, you will know exactly what I mean. Now for that second skill, you are going to want the shrapnel trap. Now the shrapnel trap is your contingency plan. It is your backup plan. You're going to put the shrapnel trap in front of those 2 double doors where the enemies spawn. That way, if the mortars don't kill them, as soon as they walk out those double doors, they will get hit by the shrapnel trap. And that is the explosive damage mortar build. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you gameplay footage of me clearing that first part of floor 100 with this mortar build, and then we will finish up with that third build that you need for the first part of floor 100. After that, we'll talk about the hunters, and then we will be on our way. So alright, let's roll that mortar footage. Hey. Alright, so this is going to be your third and last build that you need for the first part of Floor 100. And this is going to be your healer and your riot foam guy. So, here it is. Now just looking at it, we'll start off at the top. And disclaimer, this is going to be the hardest build to farm for because you need the future initiative chess piece. The only way to get the future initiative chess piece or getting the blueprint is from doing the Iron Horse raid. So that's your disclaimer for this build. I am sorry, but this is the best way to use it, and you need that future initiative chess piece. If you can't do this with a healer, you can 3-man the Floor 100, but it's just going to be a little more tricky because you're not going to have a healer. So, looking at this build starting off at the top, we are running the Survivalist specialization. Reason being is you are putting enemies on a status with the Riot Foam, and the Survivalist specialization gives you more damage to your allies to targets that are under a status effect. So you want that with your Riot Foam. Now as far as the weapons, again, you need the test subject for the primary, and then a pistol with normal in sync as your secondary. Now going into the build. Now this build is pretty simple. It's a 4-piece future initiative with BTSU gloves and a Hana U backpack. Now you want the BTSU gloves because you are using that healer hive to break and give your team overcharge. So that is vital because overcharge with your Riot Foam and Creeping Death is what gets all of those enemies foamed at the same time. Not only that, but the duration lasts for quite some time. Now, as far as the pieces and the setup, you want to start off with the Future Initiative mask. Now, the Future Initiative gear set bonuses I get from this build, I get repair skills from the 2-piece, skill haste and duration from the 3-piece, and then for the 4-piece, I get that ground control talent. Now this increases you and your allies' total weapon damage and skill damage by 15% when you're at full armor. Now, I am running this with the chess piece. I said the chess piece is vital because this gives you and your allies 25% skill damage and weapon damage instead of the 15%. So you get a 10% damage buff when you have the backpack. Now back to the mask, future initiative, skill tier, and then you want everything to status effects. Reason being is this is all about your Riot Foam. So you want a long duration for the foam, and you want high status effects for the foam as well. So for this one, for the mask, you have status effects for the attribute, and then skill duration for the mod. Going to the chess piece, again skill tier with status effects and then skill duration for the mod. Go down to the holster, again skill tier and status effects. And then finally the knee pads, again skill tier and status effects. Now the gloves, like I said, BTSU gloves, and you need them because when you pop the hive, it grants you and your allies overcharge for 15 seconds. So this is vital for the first part of Floor 100, but this is also vital for the hunters. And I'll explain that after this. So the last piece is the backpack. Now Hana U, you want your Riot Foam and your hive to come back as fast as possible. So running the Hana U gives you that skill haste that you want. Now as far as the attributes, it comes with a skill tier, but then you want skill haste and status effects for the attributes, and then skill duration for the mod. Now you're running Creeping Death because you want that riot foam to hit all of the enemies. That way your Oxidizer guys can take them down as quickly as possible, especially for the hunters. So Creeping Death, when you apply a status effect, it will also apply to all enemies within 8 meters of that target. And this is your healer riot foam build. Now the only other thing I want to mention, you need the Restore Hive. That way you can heal your teammates and you can break it. That way you can grant the overcharge. And then you want to run it with the riot foam. That way you can get all those enemies foamed and they can either hit them with the Oxidizer or the Mortar turret. Now, more importantly, the mods for the riot foam. So you want Ensnare Duration for the right side and then Duration on the left. That way you can see on the right side of your screen, I have a 15.6 second duration for the riot foam. That is plenty of time for you to hit them with mortars and oxidizers. Alright, so this is the healer riot foam build for the first part of floor 100. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and show you the gameplay of me running it, and then we will come back and talk about the second part of floor 100 and how to take care of those hunters. But alright, here goes the gameplay. Roll it. Right then. Here we go to wreck the day. Yep. Nice. Very good. Alright, so now you fully understand how to take care of the first part of floor 100. You know that you need 2 people running the Oxidizer Jammer build. You need 1 person running the explosive damage mortar build. And then you need 1 person overcharging the entire team and using the riot foam. So now we're going to talk about the second part, the hunters. Now the hunters are a little bit easier. There's only 2 builds that you need. You need the healer riot foam build and you need the oxidizer build. You are not using the mortars for the hunters. I repeat, you are not using the mortars for the hunters. You are using the riot foam healer and then you are using 3 Oxidizer builds. Alright, so with that being said, let's talk about the first one, and that is your healer Riot Foam build. Alright, so for the hunters, what you're going to do is you're going to be at double doors for the hunters. You're at the observation deck and you're about to proceed. You get everyone together in the middle and then you drop your restorer hive. Reason being is whenever everyone's ready, they're going to start shooting their oxidizers at the spawn location of these hunters. And then what you're going to do is you're going to pop the hive, granting them overcharge, and then they can shoot a few more oxidizer charges that are overcharged, and you will also have overcharge for your riot foam. Now it is vital that you have that, because the only way to get all of the hunters foamed at once is to have it overcharged and to have creeping death. So you're using the exact same build for the hunters that you did in the first part of floor 100. The only difference is now what you are doing, you are putting down the hive, opening the double doors. Your oxidizers are going to put down all of their skills and then get ready to shoot their oxidizers. What you are going to do is you are going to wait until each person shoots 3 to 4 oxidizers. Reason being is you only have 15 seconds for that overcharge from your BTSU gloves, and they have 8 charges of oxidizer. So you want half of those to be normal and half of those to be overcharged. That way you still have enough time to spawn the hunters and get them foamed. So the way this is going to work, and I'll show you the gameplay as soon as I'm done with this, is that you're going to open up the double doors, you'll have your healer hive down, all the other players are going to get in position, and they're going to start shooting their oxidizers. You're going to count, and as soon as each of them have shot 3 to 4 charges, you are going to pop your restorer hive to grant yourself overcharge. The center oxidizer player is going to walk down the stairs and spawn the hunters. When that happens, you will shoot your riot foam. Now the way to do it, and the most efficient way to do it, is you will shoot your riot foam either just to the left or just to the right of the stairs. That way it hits all of the hunters and the creeping death activates as well. This will have all of your hunters foamed, and they will be foamed inside of those oxidizer clouds. That way they just die instantly. And that's how you basically kill the hunters instantly. You have overcharged oxidizers and riot foam, you get them stuck in place and let the oxidizers do all the work. So what I'm going to do right now, because I've already shown you this build, I'm going to just go ahead and show you the gameplay of us clearing floor 100 while I was using this build. I'm going to show you maybe 1 or 2 clears, that way you can see exactly how I do it, and that's it. We will move on to the oxidizer builds. But alright, we're going to roll that footage and I will be right back with the last build breakdown. I hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, please hit that like, and here we go. Roll that footage. You got it. Here we go. Yep, go. Alright, so this is going to be the last build breakdown, and then I'll show you the remaining gameplay and we are out of here. So you've just seen everything with the healer and the riot foam. Now I'm going to talk about the other 3 builds that are all going to be this exact build. The only difference between the 3 are going to be the secondary skill that each of them use, because they are each going to use a different secondary skill. But for the most part, you are going to run this exact same build. Now, a lot of you might say, well, this is the exact same thing you just showed us with the Oxidizer in the first part of floor 100. And I'm going to say, look closer. The backpack is different. So, quick overview. Technician specialization, because I'm running the sacrifice with a red core attribute. I am running the 2 Walker Harris for the damaged armor, Contractor's gloves with damaged armor, Fox's Prairie knee pads with damaged targets at a cover, and the sacrifice chest piece for that perfect glass cannon. Now, the only difference to this build from the other one is now I am using combined arms instead of the tech support. Reason being is combined arms is going to work perfectly with your test subject, because at this point of floor 100 you have already killed enemies from the first part of floor 100. That way you have ammo for your primary weapon. So with that being said, all you have to do is when the hunters spawn, you shoot 1 or 2 bullets with your test subject, and you will get the 40% from the perfectly in sync, and then you will also get the 25% from the combined arms. So just with shooting the enemy with 2 bullets, you're going to get 65% skill damage instantly. Not only that, but then you have to add in the multiplicative buffs, and you have to amplify that with the glass cannon. So this is how you get that crazy damage for the hunters. So the rest of it is the same for the Oxidizer build. The only difference is that backpack. You're switching the tech support off for the combined arms. Same weapons, same everything else, just changing the backpack. Now, as far as the skills, everyone, the 3 people that are using the Oxidizer, everyone is obviously going to have the Oxidizer equipped. However, the secondary skill is what is so vital. Now, as you can see with the hunter gameplay, you have 3 people that are going to walk through those double doors and stand there at the top of the stairs. You're going to have 1 person to the left of the stairs, you're going to have 1 person in the middle, and then 1 person to the right. Your riot foam healer is going to stand back. That way all 3 of the Oxidizers can shoot all their charges. The healer can overcharge it. And then when that center guy goes down the stairs to spawn in the hunters, that's when the healer riot foam guy goes to the top of the stairs and then shoots the riot foam. So you can see that this is just a well-oiled machine, team synergy at its finest. So 3 Oxidizer builds. And I'm going to show you gameplay footage of each of those points of view. So starting with the left Oxidizer guy is going to run the Artificer Hive. Reason being is the Artificer will buff your damage and also give you better skill haste at the same time. So the left guy, as you open up the double doors, the guy on the left is going to drop his Artificer Hive in the middle of the stairs. That way all of the teammates can get the buff. He is then going to whip out the Oxidizer and start shooting to the right side of the stairs and the red box. That way all of those hunters on that side are taken care of. So that is Oxidizer number 1. Oxidizer number 2 is going to be running the Scanner Pulse. Reason being is the Scanner Pulse, when you overcharge it, will give you the talent Weakness Exploit. So you and your allies' damage will be amplified by 15% to all pulsed targets. So the way the second person is going to go You are going to open up the double doors for the hunters. The left Oxidizer guy is going to drop his Artificer Hive. The right Oxidizer guy is going to drop his Booster Hive. And then you are just going to be shooting your Oxidizer at the center of the stairs, left side and right side. That is it. Now, after the overcharge and the healer says, okay, go, you, the center guy, is going to walk down those stairs and spawn the hunters. As soon as the hunters spawn, this is vital. As soon as the hunters spawn, you have to pulse. If you pulse before they spawn, you will not pulse the enemies. So you have to wait until that second that the hunters spawn in, and then you will hit your scanner pulse. That way everyone gets that amplified damage. So again, for the first Oxidizer guy, he's going to drop the Artificer Hive in the middle of the stairs. He's going to be on the left side shooting right. The second Oxidizer guy is going to have the scanner pulse. He is going to be at the top of the stairs shooting both the center left and center right of where the hunters spawn. Now, the third Oxidizer guy is going to run the Booster Hive. So this guy, when we open up the double doors, this guy is going to go to the right side of the stairs and drop his Booster Hive in the middle of the stairs. That way everybody gets the buff. Now the reason for that is the Booster Hive will give you weapon handling. The weapon handling will affect your Oxidizer. So it'll make it easier for target acquisition. It'll make it easier for you to shoot it exactly where you want it. And yeah, it's a good little tip to have. So last time I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to just show you the gameplay and we're going to get out of here. For the hunters, you will have the one person running the healer riot foam. They're going to put down the healer hive at the double doors, open them up. The three Oxidizer guys are going to get in position. The left Oxidizer is going to put his Artificer Hive in the middle of the stairs and get ready to shoot the Oxidizer. The second Oxidizer guy is going to sit at the top of the stairs and wait for all the buffs so he can shoot his Oxidizer. And the third Oxidizer guy is going to drop the Booster Hive in the middle of the stairs, and then he's going to stand, or she is going to stand to the right of the stairs. That way you have one person shooting the right of the stairs and the right hunter spawn. You have the other person shooting both sides of the stairs. And then you have the last Oxidizer guy shooting the left part of the stairs and the left spawn for the hunters. The riot foam guy is going to pop his hive, give you overcharge. You are going to shoot a couple more Oxidizers, and then the healer riot foam guy will say, okay, go. That is going to be the cue for the second Oxidizer guy with the scanner pulse to walk down the stairs and spawn the hunters. As soon as the hunters spawn, you will hit the scanner pulse, pulsing all of the hunters. While you are doing that, the healer riot foam guy is going to shoot his overcharged riot foam to either the left of the stairs or the right of the stairs. Either way, it's going to get 90% of the hunters foamed, and then the creeping death is going to get the other hunters foamed. That way each of them are stuck in place, and then they all die from your Oxidizer. Now, to make it hit harder, you will have ammo for your primary weapon. So use the test subject, get the perfectly in sync to proc with the combined arms, and then you get 65% more skill damage while doing all of this. So you will have overcharge, you will have the Artificer, You will have the booster hive. You'll have the amplified damage from the pulse. You'll have the damage to armor and the damage to targets out of cover. And you will have the amplified damage from the glass cannon. This is the best way to farm floor 100, period. So I hope you enjoy it. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you gameplay of me using the Oxidizer builds on both the left, right, and center, all shooting the hunters. That way you can see what it looks like from each perspective. And then that's it. Get some buddies together, get your builds together, and try it out for yourself. Now, what I'm going to say at the end is how you reset floor 100. So you want to do legendary with 8 directives, and the only way to reset it over and over and over is to have a 5th character or 5th account. So you will have somebody on standby or an account on standby that has the floor 100 spawn. That way all 4 of you can kill the hunters, get all the XP, get everything every single time. As soon as you complete floor 100, one of your people are going to transfer out to that 5th person that has floor 100. They're going to reset the chain, and then everyone is going to join back up together and do it again. And that is how you farm floor 100 over and over and over again on legendary with 8 directives. Now, normal XP will be around 1.7 million per clear. Now, if you are doing the double XP during a manhunt, you will then get 3.4 to 3.5 million XP per clear. So that's why you can see that my shade level keeps going up rapidly. I'm already at 2320. I think like 3 weeks ago, I was at 1800. So it's definitely working out. Now, use this. If you have any questions at all, let me know in the comment section below. I will be happy to answer your questions. So just let me know. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Oh yeah, now we're rolling that footage. 3 different perspectives of the Oxidizer build. One with the Artificer, one with the booster, and one with scanner. Alright guys, enjoy. See you later. Not at all. Yeah, that's like one of those dream team scenarios. But normally for me, it's around 15. Right, exactly. Yeah. Alright, here we go. Because I've noticed that just consistently, me just running with random people I've never seen before, it's somewhere around 15 minutes. But then once you get like their buddies in there with you, then it's like, okay, now we can actually have some fun. That's what I did with the equals. That's different. Alright, I'm gonna be right side. Yep.
An agent needs assistance.